Many years ago, my wife Kathy and I used to like to go down to a little restaurant in Bethesda called Chef Tony's seafood restaurant on St. Elmo. Anybody been there? No. But it was kind of a nice, intimate little restaurant, and they had great seafood, and we always like to go down there and have a treat. So it was after some time I decided, I need to find out more about how Chef Tony makes his food, and he offers training cooking classes. Mm-hmm. So I took a cooking class. The first and last cooking class I've ever taken. But I don't know if that's good or bad. It was great, and at any rate, now Chef Tony it moved to the facility right next door to this hotel in Pook's Hill and the promenade, mm-hmm. and has a captive audience there in this high-rise apartment area. And he also has recently opened another restaurant, Amalfi, up on Wilkins Avenue. So he's expanding, he's growing. I've been on his email, and I've been really impressed by how effective he is at marketing and email advertising. And this is a lesson for us to learn in this club, the need for marketing. And that's particularly one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him in here and see if we could pick his brain, get some ideas about how we can grow our club. So Tony, thank you so much for coming.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I am reminded by our question this morning. I'm a pretty local guy. I grew up in the area since the age of 4, just a few years, 50, something like that. So I appreciate being here. I actually used to detail the Marriott buses when I was in high school. We had a detailing company. So I was reminded of being out here at 8 in the morning, wax on, wax off kind of stuff. But anyways, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. If you're able to key up my little 12:30 in the morning presentation, it'll keep me on track so I don't fall over here.
Yeah.
So just getting to know everybody in the room. And again, if there's any questions, we'll have a little quick section at the back. But how many of you are creative in any way? Does anybody feel like they're creative? Okay, love it, love it, love it. And is everybody retired, or are we still in active duty, or what are we doing?
Retired.
Okay, and what sort of business were you in? Or job?
IBM.
Oh, okay. Small company.
And negotiating contract.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Is anybody out in working now in the marketplace, or are we kind of at the stage of who's that?
Position.
Okay, wonderful. What do you work on?
Kidney disease.
Oh, I'm sorry, I might see you soon. I don't know. Hopefully not, but yeah, my dear past father had some kidney issues, so hopefully I don't inherit it, but we'll see. But anyways, creativity to me is pretty important to what I do. My father was an accountant, not exactly the most creative mindset, but my mom is an artist. She lives about 5 minutes from here, God bless her, and she's 90 and she's doing great. Just had cataract surgery, so probably you might expect. She'll have another one next week, but so I feel like my brain is kind of half and half, which is nice. I'm not claiming to be very smart, but I kind of approach our business with that creative side, but also that, hey, we got to make some money side. So if you could advance one, thank you. That's my lovely wife and me. Call us Team Tony, at least today. My wife is my partner in business, life, and all the rest of it. She's wonderful. We've been, actually, yesterday was a bit of an anniversary. We'll have an official anniversary next week. 13 years married, 16 years total. She's been dealing with me. So it's been she's got a good, strong backbone. She's a chef as well, as you might tell by the coat. So we started our first restaurant, as Paul mentioned, in 2007, right before the recession of 2008. That was really great timing. I will be using sarcasm liberally today. So we've been through a couple battles, but thank God we've survived them all and thriving a little bit. So humbly speaking, we're doing pretty well. If you could go to the next one, Mr. Paul, appreciate that. So we own and operate Chef Tony's seafood restaurants. You can almost see it behind that. One is just up the street, as we mentioned, a promenade. We've been there about 2.5 years. And the Wilkins Avenue is Amalfi, which is a very old school kind of Italian kind of feel spot. We like the old school feel. So we just bought that in November and converted it, and we opened up in January. Very nice space, had private dining rooms, and it's got that kind of Goodfellas, Godfather kind of feel to it. It's a little freshened up. There's no shooting involved. There is a side door in case we get into trouble. So the top room is a good spot. But all terrible jokes aside, we do have a couple rooms we created for 16 people, 8 people, probably seat about 120, something like that. And we do a Mediterranean seafood menu. And we also have a Hemi Pizza, which is actually within the promenade. That's a Detroit style pizza. Does anybody in this room know what Detroit style pizza is? I expect it. Oh, you do. Can you explain it for us?
Well, I know that I haven't made it because it's not the one that
We talked pizza a minute ago.
yeah, we talked pizza. I mean, it utilizes tomatoes and sauce. I guess I don't know the specific details of it. I know that the book that I have, it comes from a pizza place in San Francisco, the Tony's Pizzeria.
Mhm.
Familiar with that? And you have the Detroit style too, and had not made it. So I guess I confess I don't know specific
So you
details.
really don't know what it is.
Let's hear about it.
So it is. So it started in 1946 in Detroit, which, as we know, especially at that time, was a very working class automobile, GM, Ford, all that. And there were these pans that they circulated around the auto places that were 8 by 10, and they were like a metal, blue steel pan. So a local pizza entrepreneur started just figuring out this pizza they could get to the workers pretty quickly. So they borrowed some of those pans, and it made this really nice focaccia style dough or crust. It's kind of thick but kind of light. It's really not a heavy like Chicago style. It's a little more wet, a little more, So it became you bake the pizza, you put toppings, and then you do sauce on top. And they did it like racing stripes, kind of a tip of the hat to the automotive industries. Anyways, that's
And they use racing oil instead of.
racing oil. Very good. You're picking up on the thing.
And they're all the oil pans.
Oil pan.
Yeah, they didn't bother washing them. It was great.
It's like a Sicilian pizza,
I'm sorry?
like a Sicilian pizza.
Very similar to Sicilian or grandma style. Exactly right. So anyways, a little quick lesson. I didn't know what it was till like 3 years ago. So don't consider yourself a dullard if you don't know what a Detroit pizza is. Although it's been around now for about 80 some years. So it's kind of cool that it got a little popular last year because of Domino's creating a Detroit style. So it's starting to be a little more part of the conversation. Anyways, next slide, sir. So this is my quick resume. I won't bore you with too much of it, but started in 1987 after high school, got into the restaurant business on a whim. Actually, we first opened the first Chef Tony's, it was called Visions. And a little bit of that reference was me having a vision in high school of being in a restaurant. And literally I can still picture like a movie, but I'd never been working in a restaurant. So I had this little corner booth and we just got out of, dinner service and my friends were coming around me and we were going to have a meal. And it was very traditional red and white checker table. I mean, I can visualize it and I like the feeling, right? So that was an indication that maybe I'll try this thing working in restaurants. So obviously it's worked out. Got to a partnership in a restaurant by the age of 21 up in Hagerstown, Maryland. Don't move to Hagerstown. If anybody live in Hagerstown? It's a cool place, but it's a little different. I was there for a couple of years. It was a great experience. We opened up a beautiful restaurant in a historical building in downtown. Anyways, I don't want to rush, but I don't want to bore because everyone's just very early morning. So if you haven't had some coffee, it might put you to sleep. Later, I moved to North Carolina. We opened 2 more restaurants there with some high school friends. Did well, sold out of that. Moved back home to Maryland. I was an executive chef for McCormick and Schmick's for 8 years. Great company. Kind of getting back into my hometown. Let's get a job for a little while. Stayed 8 years, so that's a good sign. Started Chef Tony's in 2007. Actually, with somebody who I met at McCormick and Schmick's, who was a prep cook. A very smart prep cook. He was in business, going to school and getting his master's and all that, but he just needed a job. We became close friends, started a business together. We're still friends to this day, although he's not involved in the business anymore. But so we opened up Promenade in 2021. So we were in downtown Bethesda for quite a while, 13 years. Love the space. Development, as many know in Bethesda, is never stopping. So eventually it was, they kind of told us, well, there's going to be a building put up here eventually. And they kept putting eventually out there, but eventually it happened. So we had to move to Promenade, which is great. And then as we affectionately call it, CT3 was our new restaurant we bought in November last year, which is the Amalfi location, Chef Tony's at Amalfi. We do olive oils and balsamics. We do our Hemi Pizza. Started that in 2020 during the pandemic. So adaptability, we had a restaurant in downtown Bethesda. And we had a room in the back, and we said, well, I don't know. My chef friend, who I met, we had this idea of pizza. He said, you got to try this pizza. It's this new recipe, Detroit. Blah, blah, blah. So we ended up converting part of our dining room into a pizza kitchen. I said, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So we did it all right. We bought proper equipment and all the rest of it, but we needed to make revenue. So we started this pizza business, seeing how it would go. And it went pretty well. So we've been doing that for, I guess, about 3 years in total, 3.5 years. And it's currently, like I said, in the middle of our restaurant at the Promenade. So you can get carry out, you can dine in, whatever you want to do. And we do cooking classes, as he mentioned. We just did our first one in the new restaurant about a month and a half ago. We'll probably do another one this month, and every month we'll do. And it's a very intimate kind of, this would be about the group that we would have, 8 to 10 people. We check fingers when you walk in, make sure you got all 10 when you walk in, so we can, accuse something inappropriate. But it's hands-on, so you actually learn something. And I've had a lot of people graciously mention that they reference what we taught them years later when they're in the kitchen. Oh, this is how Chef Tony did it. So, hey, you better follow his. We certainly don't know everything about food, but we do enjoy it. So next slide if you can, sir. So what can I teach you? You seasoned a bunch of business people, right? So that was my question myself last night. So we'll go one more. Chefs are generally intense, female or male. We like to we do our business for a reason. We don't just accidentally fall into 75 hours a week of work. If you created a product, there's a lot to be said about making this thing and having it. It's part of your soul, and then people judge it, right? It's not an easy thing. And we're feeding you. So it's very internal, literally and physically and emotionally. It's kind of something important. Go to the next slide, sir. So who's this guy? That's very much of a commitment to having a tattoo that big. Happens to be me. So that was me in a book. That was about 35 hours of work. And a lot of money, a lot of fairly decent pay. But there's actually a poster for a French poster of kitchen life. So does anybody know Tupac? Does anybody remember Tupac Shakur, the rapper? So he had a tattoo that said thug life, which, is what he lived. I lived a chef life. So had this idea from an artist in Florida and kept going down there back in another lifetime ago. Anyways, we're intense. So go to the next slide, sir, if you don't mind. Oh, and we're committed. That's me. That's our Hemi hot honey. So we make hot honey to go with the pizza, and that was a little promo piece I did. I figured it would probably grab an eyeball or two.
Yes.
No teeth were hurt in the commission of this photograph. So don't worry. Next slide, sir, if you don't mind. So here's why get to know a chef. Anybody have an idea? Why would you want to know one of these people? Anybody know a chef besides me? And who do you know?
It's a chef in New York.
Okay. You're probably from New York, aren't you? I could tell. All right, good.
Give us sources of where to get the best ingredients.
Well, that's good. And chefs are generally pretty passionate people, nice people overall. Scoundrels, some of them, but underneath every exterior of however you take a chef, there's a lot of passion involved and a lot of work and a lot of creativity and a lot of openness about what they do, right? Most of them. Some people are a little bit weak. But next slide. Yes, sir. You had a
I
question?
always wondered, with all the work involved in a restaurant, with all the risk involved with the weather,
Why the heck do you do it?
the pandemic. I mean, why
Why even go there?
why do people even want to open a restaurant?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to answer it. Here's part of the answer, right? Creativity is intelligence having fun, right? It is a passion, but without a doubt. Every line cook that works for you wants to, well, not everyone, but many want to own a restaurant one day. the reality is they don't really understand what that's gonna mean.
Yeah.
Even if you're the general manager, executive chef, you're like right at the top. When you own it and your name is on the wall, literally, and the bill comes in your name, that's another level. And it's not to say we're so great, I'm just saying that's a commitment that you can't walk away from. Like if nobody comes tonight and I make no money, then I'll have to figure out where to find that money. You know what I mean? So it's reality that you have to love doing it and want to do it for a specific passion, because otherwise it's just too hard. I was going to say another word, but I don't want to say it. Yes.
We had a grandson who has worked part and full time for about 5 years in restaurants
Wonderful.
in Austin, Texas.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
And he's now making noises like, I want to own the restaurant.
Send him my number. I'm happy to consult for at least the first half hour for free. No, and it's great. I absolutely am a fan of the industry, and then we need more people like that. It is a unique, I mean, like if he's even if he's the top boss working for somebody, when you go into your own, it's a little different neighborhood. So I encourage it, but go in with eyes wide open, I would say. Did you have
I
something?
have a question. What do most chefs go to sleep?
Well, I don't know too many chefs except the one I sleep with. So probably pretty late, 12:30, 1, 2, because you get home, even an early night would be 10 o'clock. That would be early, like unbelievably early. Then you can't walk in the door and just kick over and sleep. So I would say most chefs are a little bit nocturnal. I'm not up at 7:30 very often, I'll tell you that much. So I hope everybody, I'm not negative. So everybody here owes me a debt of gratitude to be here. No, it's really true. I think we're mostly, and I was that way as a kid, so maybe I gravitated to be okay with it because I was always kind of a night child. Yeah. But I mean, most times chefs are usually, the problem is they're working early many times and late. So the day becomes very long and the hours become very, very long.
When did you start cooking for dinner?
We start around 2 o'clock because we don't open for lunch. So we have our staff come in between 2 and 3, and it depends. I may have a catering, I may have an early morning breakfast once in a blue moon. But yeah, it depends. I mean, every operation is different. I've run, as a job, I was a chef at McCormick and Schmick's. We were there 7 o'clock every day because we opened for lunch and then we did dinner and then I was in charge.
That's a long time.
That's a long day. There's no doubt. So any chef that's going to do it better be ready for 12, 14-hour days. There's just no way around. I mean, I don't say there's no way around it, but it's pretty rare. Now, the good thing is nowadays you can be a food stylist, you can be a personal chef. To me, if you're calling yourself a chef, then you at least for some time should have run a restaurant. That to me is just what a chef does. I mean, that's what we might fragment and do this and that, do different things, but for me, that's kind of where you earn your stripes. That's just me. Yes.
Where do chefs such as yourself get your ingredients now?
Well, we have wholesale suppliers, a lot of them. I passed a truck, Hemi Produce, on the way here. Different produce companies, meat companies, seafood, some do multiple lines of that. There's usually a dry, what we call groceries, who sells you the cannellini beans and the pasta and the, flour and the kind of dry goods. But usually they'll do multiple things. Cisco's a huge one, yeah. Yeah, we use Savile Foods, which is a local company. It's a family-run business. That's why I like them. I try to stick with them. We've been with them for a number of years now. But yeah, there's companies that they're wholesale. There's also places now like Restaurant Depot, which we did for a number of years, where you go almost like Home Depot, but now restaurants. Yeah, but it's a big pain in the where. It's a lot of work because you're going and pulling. You got these big carts, and I always felt like it was. I saw guys in really old, beaten up chef coats, and they were pushing this cart. I felt like it was hell, like what you would see in hell, where they're, like strapped to something and just walking. And really, I was like, I don't want to be that guy. I'm not doing that at 65 years old. I'm not going to do it. So, you save money, but it's a physical. Like one of my trucks was basically put to rest because of all the Restaurant Depot trips. Because you load in, a couple, 1,000 pounds of stuff, and you drive them on the highway 2 or 3 times a week, that starts to wear on the vehicle. So,
Agricultural reserve here.
no, I actually was very involved when I was down in Bethesda. I came on the time too. It's the problem with it is that it's hard to connect chefs and farmers. because we're all running our businesses. And I found, because I tried to assist with some of those programs, it was hard to get a system where I can order, they got it, because they're not producing like commodity. They're growing, oh, I got 20 pounds of beets. Well, if a restaurant's busy, 20 pounds would supply one restaurant. So if you're not having hundreds of pounds of beets, and then it's like, well, you're the beet guy. How much money is there in beets? I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, so it kind of becomes, to me, a little tough. And it's another layer of like difficulty if you have to get your car, your truck. I have a big truck now, and if I had to run around and get all my stuff, that's a whole nother couple hours of a week of getting stuff, which is good. But if you go to the next slide, I don't want to take too much time. Chefs are passionate, as we've talked, caring
About food
and people. That's correct. You're onto a theme. And it can do something that can kill you or make you very happy. So, speaking to a small thing, for me, 3 months ago, we got some carryout from a place, and it didn't sit well with me or my son as well, my stepson. And I got so sick from it that I've lost some of my hearing in my left ear. That's why if you hear me say, what? That's a little bit of something new. So it's very important how food kind of works with you. So, next slide, sir. Food connects people everywhere. That's really the theme of what I wanted to kind of get to you today. Everybody's connected with food. If you go to the next one, we gather people together, and my title got mushed into my picture, but you get the idea. If you're gathering people together, even this morning or another day, you're sharing something. I've always said if everyone at that table spoke a different language, you would still have some kind of shared experience that would connect you in a way. Next slide, sir. And if you're intentional, so what I wanted to leave you with in a sense today is like, how do you become intentional about connecting with great food? You know, how do you use food as a medium to connect with a business person or a friend or whatever? Next slide, sir. You'll make amazing. You kind of got lost there. Think some of the transference into PowerPoint makes it.
Yeah, and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, 4 o'clock in the morning. Go ahead, sir. Next slide. So that was saying you make some amazing connections. You've heard to not be scared speaking, right? Let's go to the next slide. You're supposed to imagine everybody naked. I've heard that, you know. It'll take the fear away. Apparently I don't have too much fear, and I don't really want to see. Next slide, if you don't mind. Yeah. Oh, I don't really want to think about everybody being naked, nothing personal. But there's a way to do it without this technique. So go to the next slide, Ken, sir. Instead, how about connecting over food, right? We've all had a Thanksgiving meal, a Christmas dinner, a birthday dinner. There's a commonality that I just met you all today, pretty much most of you. And there's something we could connect on about a meal that you had, a trip you took. You could go ahead and connect to the next slide. Holiday meal, the next slide, please. Incredible meal you had on holiday, right? You went somewhere unique, you had something you never had before. Food is so crazily like a million trillion opportunities of difference, right? You go to Italy, you go to Greece, you go to even another state, right? You can experience something that's so important to somebody and you never even heard of it. So it's kind of amazing. Next slide, sir. When were you grilling? Were you grilling with your homies? I know you've been grilling with your homies, right?
Yeah.
And you had a memory of that. You had a beer or two, perhaps. Next slide, sir. You get the picture, so not to over-explain. Go ahead, sir. But why? Why do we say this is important? Next slide. Food carries emotions, and we all can relate, right? Go to the next slide if you can. Happy today? Let's eat, right? Let's go get a meal. We signed a big contract. Grandma doesn't have cancer, whatever it is. Next slide, sir. Or if you're mourning, let's eat, right? I had a friend call me one time, someone in their family passed away unexpectedly. He said, hey, can you serve 50 people in like a couple of days? I'm like, sure, I got you. Matter of fact, I didn't think about this, but 2 weeks ago, a friend from high school called me, and his wife works for a big biotech company, and her director of HR had a tragic thing happen to his son. I don't want to get into that, but he's like, and this was on a day off. Like I was literally taking a nap. He said, for any chance you can put together food for 10 people? I'm like, of course, I got you. So within 2 hours, I was in the restaurant making food, drove it up their house, and it was extremely like a weird uncomfortableness because usually we serve and we're happy and everybody, you know, this guy on the patio of his house had just lost his son. Unexpected. And so to be able to serve the family and take care of them at that moment was crucial. Next slide, please. Talking business, let's get food involved. That's always a good thing. You get a luncheon for an important deal or you want to present something and food could be involved. So next slide, sir. So use food talk to connect. I think there's a great way when you can talk to people and think about a commonality that you might find. If you don't know somebody, many people go, especially here, well, what do you do? What do you do? And that's just, unfortunately, it's a very East Coast thing. But what if you said, hey, did you have a great lunch yesterday? And they said, well, I don't know, what do they eat? Right? But you can talk about food in a lot of ways that connects with people. Next slide, sir. Get to know a chef because they're usually pretty cool, but of course I'm biased. And it's good to know a chef. If you go to a restaurant, seriously, on a serious point, if you have a chance to ask for the chef or say, my compliment, the old lines, my compliments, it really does actually come off really cool. We really like to hear that people are excited about what they have. Because you put this out, and many chefs, especially cooks, the food goes on a plate, it goes out to the, somewhere, somebody takes it somewhere, it's very disconnected. So when they can actually, I've often taken my cooks out to the dining room and just shown them and like reminded them, like we're sitting and, you sit here and the fruit has a piece of rind on it, they probably made 50 pounds of fruit. One piece has got a rind, but then when you get it, this is perfect. So, not about being fancy, but we want to always remember that, feeding people is an honor. So if you go to the next slide, sir. So what else do I do? You can go one more. I have a restaurant owner lessons.com. It's a podcast that I do for other restaurant owners, kind of sharing industry, kind of a B2B kind of idea. The next slide is our olive oil line. We have a bunch of olive oils and balsamic vinegars that we get made for us. We private label those.
Is it California or?
It's California, Italy, Greece. It's from around the world. It's a company in the Midwest. We designed the labels and we bottle it. We tried about 60, 70 olive oils and balsamic vinegars and picked what I found most helpful. There's one that I love, which is a white grapefruit balsamic. That's unbelievable. Very delicious. Next slide, sir. I don't print my own money, although I'd like to figure that out. Go ahead. Next slide. I don't do that. The next slide over is I do make my own t-shirts. So we have a print on demand company that we do some fun, creative t-shirts. I was going to wear one today, then I said, let me go with my formal chef coat. So one more slide and hopefully I will connect with all of you today. So one more slide and you'll see me at the end saying thank you for having me. And that was not taken last night. That's an old picture. So anyways, the next one more slide is questions and answers, which you've already taken a few opportunities, but I'd love to answer anything you want to know. Yes, sir.
How did you survive COVID?
Great question. It was a time to pivot extremely, as we all know. My birthday was March 8th of that year. It was a Sunday. And I remember that was the last normal day.
Yeah.
So we pivoted, we spun, we created a market. We did take 1 month off, which I'll probably never have the opportunity to do again, but we basically did do a lot of different stuff.
Did you have takeout?
We did take out when it was allowed, and this county was I don't want to get too political, but it was interesting how, now you're 50%, no, now you're 10%, no, now you're closed, now you're open. The first day they reopened the dining rooms was Valentine's, which is an amazingly stupid mistake. Because everybody had wanted to go out because it was the first day the dining rooms were fully open. It's already Valentine's. It was a mess, literally.
A lot of restaurants went out of business.
A lot did. Fortunately, yeah. It was and I think we did benefit, unfortunately, from the recession of 2008, because we're able to kind of remember some of the things we did. You just got to be hustling all the time. You got to sell and you got to push and you got to market. And you gently have to tell people, like I'm going to do right now, I have some cards up here. You want to take a card? We have lobster night. We have a Sunday brunch. We have our Hemi Pizza. So we're always just making sure that we offer you coffee, right? It's not to be offended if you say, no, I don't want any coffee today. But we have to make sure we're out there. So we have to really hustle.
Were you able to keep the staff?
Some, not all, for sure. We definitely lost some, for sure. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to take one, come see us, this business, yeah, I appreciate that.
Does the card mention the podcast and that sort of thing?
Doesn't, but you could, my email is on the website, you could always hit me up, yeah, and it's restaurantownerlessons.com if you happen to remember that. We do happy hour, both restaurants, so, we do a lot tonight on Thursdays at both restaurants. So we would love to have you, and just mention you met us here, we'd love to know that it actually works. So, thank you, sir. Yeah.
Over here, Tony,
Sunday brunch, what's that?
quick question.
Yes, sir.
Are all chefs gourmands or
No.
No.
I mean, yes, we are to a degree, because we know things that through our course of work, we become experts at it. But honestly, when you cook all day, the last thing you want to do is go home and cook a complicated meal. Usually it's a sandwich or a roast chicken or something simple. Something easy, because it's like what do they say, the cobbler's shoes, right? It's working on everybody else's shoes all day, these shoes are terrible.
Have you had many meals at different restaurants that you feel were exceeded your expectations?
For sure, and many that didn't. And I'll give you one quick cooking tip. The simplest thing to improve your cooking is just thinking about basic flavors. Salt. Now, you don't need a lot of salt, but salt is literally a taste on your tongue. So if you're missing salt, food is flat.
Yeah.
And everybody says, oh, that's, butter, oh my God. You don't eat like that every day. And if you're at home and you like the way your seasonings are, that's fine. But if you're cooking and people come to a restaurant not to necessarily eat in a dietetic fashion, they're not really always, they're kind of celebrating.
Right.
So salt, butter, and any fats are, fat is flavor. So a big marbled ribeye steak is good because it's got a lot of fat. That's really, that's the truth. And so he's got them out.
We say that the two ingredients that make food taste good is butter and salt.
That's right. That's true. He's got a hammer, so I'm gonna leave. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well done.